I'm Nick from the Altar Leash, and in this podcast we're going to be using these herbs to make some real witches flying ointments. Now, we did do a podcast specifically about flying ointments some time ago, but somehow it's got lost in the ether, so we're redoing it, and in this one we're going to use a slightly different recipe. At the beginning of this podcast we used some old footage from the 1920s of old biddies flying across the sky on a broomstick, and that's still the idea most people have of witches and flying ointments. And frankly, it's still the idea most witchcraft books have about flying ointments. If you go into your local pagan bookstore and you buy an average book on witchcraft or Wicca, they'll talk about flying ointments, and many of them will even have recipes in them. What they will have done, though, in this health and safety gone mad world, is that they've taken all these ingredients, all the proper ingredients, thrown them away, and they'll have substituted them for herbs that have no chemical compounds in them that are of any use at all to flying ointments, which makes the whole thing pointless. But we're not going to do that. We're going to use the proper herbs and we're going to make some real flying ointments. But what we are going to do is use these in ritual. Flying ointments have been used since time began, really, and they're still used by shamans in South American rainforest or the shamans of the Samu people in northern Lapland. And they're still used by people like us. And these flying ointments help you journey, particularly. They're wonderful, they work, but they're all poisonous plants. So the big proviso is be careful, small doses are best, stick to this recipe as best you can, and give it a go and see what happens. But please make caution your watchword. So, what are we going to do to start with? Well, let's get the recipe down first. Now, there are all sorts of ingredients you can use. As I say, this recipe is from a 14th century recipe that was the first one that we know to have been written down. There's probably been dozens of recipes before and since, all of a similar nature, but with different compounds, different collections of plants. This is the ones we use. These plants are fairly readily available, so you can use them. Right. So let's get on and decide what we need to use. Now, the first ingredient I want to use is monk's hood. You could call it wolfsbane, it's the same thing really. This is it. Aconite it's called. You can get it in most garden centres. It's a beautiful plant, grows about so high, 3-4 feet high, spectacularly beautiful flowers on them. And it's an alkaloid compound, and it's aconitine. And aconitine is in the leaves, the stems and the roots. But you don't want to use the roots. Why would you want to do that? The best thing to use is the dried leaves and the dried seeds. And when it comes to using seeds, they're going to have to be broken down. When you find them, you might even buy a packet of seeds from monk's hood. They're tiny and they're rock hard, so you will need a pestle and mortar to break them down. Equally, once you've got these leaves nicely dried, these all have to be chopped up too. Now, the best way of doing that is to use a big mixing bowl and a herb cutter and chop all your leaves. These are all going to be dried leaves. Chop these all up nice and fine. Grind down all the seeds. Now, having got your monk's hood, what do you need next? Well, the next one is henbane. Well, henbane is infamous, really. It's a beautiful plant. It does grow wild in this country a bit, but you'll have a job finding it. But you can buy seeds on the internet for this, and it grows. It's like a weed, really. It grows really easily. Waste ground. What it doesn't want is for you to be overly fussy with it. When it grows, it grows like mad, and it doesn't need any care at all, really, other than to be weeded around. And now, henbane again. This has two ingredients in it. One's atropine and one's hyoscine, and both of these are hallucinogenics. So, and it's in all the plant. Every part of the plant has it. So what you need to do is chop your dried plant up in the same way. Now here you want leaves, stalks, all of it. Absolutely fine. Chop it all up. Now we'll get to quantities later on. But henbane has another use. It's root. Henbane root is probably the most potent of it, and because it's a biennial, when the plant has flowered for the second year, which is when you want to collect the leaves if you can dig up the plant because it won't grow again, and dry the root out, and the root is absolutely packed with atropine, which is one of the ingredients you want for flying ointment. So chop that up and grind it up as well. Now also another plant which is infamous is belladonna, or deadly nightshade. Now this contains scopolamine amongst other chemicals, which is, when mixed with aconite from monkshood, gives really powerful hallucinogenic effects. Now again, people see the berries and think they're wonderful, and they have a certain amount of chemical in them, but the leaves and the stalks are what you want. Dry them, chop them in exactly the same way. And finally, in our very special box, we keep mandrake roots. Now these mandrake roots are very precious to us because they're not that easy to grow, and we take an awful lot of loving care over them. So here is one. I'm not going to chop them up. That's one of our mandrake roots, and for this recipe I would use probably about an inch off the top, or perhaps 2 or 3 inches off one of the legs, and use it. That again has scopolamine and atropine in it, which is the chemical ingredients you need. So we've done all that, we've got all our herbs and we've chopped them all up with our chopper. We've then ground them all down to as fine a powder as we're likely to get it. Then we need to add the ingredient we're going to use to rub it in us. Now, in the old days, in a bit of film that was at the beginning, they'd have used lard or animal fats, which is okay. I mean, you can use that. It stinks a bit. Nobody much will want to be anywhere near you when you've got it slathered all over you, and it's not very nice. But what you can do now is use almond oil. You can get it from most health food shops, and you need, if you're going to do this as a couple or in a coven, smallish coven, say of 6, then you would need probably no more than 500 mils of almond oil, which is actually about that much, which is the small bottle you can get from a chemist for a fiver or whatever. You then mix the almond oil with all your ingredients, stir in well. Now, having done that, you then leave that to steep, which means you just leave it to do what it does. When we do it in ritual. This is all done ritually. You can just chop it up practically like you do it, you're baking a cake or making evening meal, but it's much better if you can do this with some semblance of ritual and pomp and circumstance, so to speak. And having got your ingredients, what we do is we put them in a dark green bottle or a brown bottle. That's to protect from light, really, and you then allow that to stand in the light of the full moon for 3 days. That's not necessarily as easy as it sounds, but leave it outside in sight of the moon does instill it with a lot more power than you would imagine. Having done that, you then need to strain off all the goo, because you're going to have almond oil, as you can see, is really lovely pure stuff, but you've now got quite a lot of plant matter in here, and that doesn't actually matter too much. If you're going to use this straight away, fine, sieve it off. You need a sieve or an old pair of tights or whatever, pour it over a pot, pour your ingredients through, mash it through, make sure you squeeze all the goodness out of it, and you might need to do that perhaps 2 or 3 times to get rid of the very tiny bits of gunk and muck in there. Then if you're going to use it fairly quickly, within a couple of weeks, fine, just pop it in the fridge where it'll stay healthy and fresh and usable for a couple of weeks. If you want to store it for longer than that, you need to add some alcohol so that the tiny particles of vegetable matter that are still in it don't rot and go off. So if you have 500 mils of your ointment here and you want to keep it for a few weeks, few months, add about 10% of the best alcohol you can find, white alcohol, pure alcohol. Gin's okay, but a good quality vodka is by far the best, and just add 10% to it, and that will stop that will keep it fresh for years, really, as long as it's in a sealed container. Now, we haven't really covered quantities, and it's very difficult to be too precise about quantities because the chemical compounds of these plants vary an awful lot. So I would suggest you start small and work your way up. 300 to 500 mils of almond oil is always perfectly alright, and when it comes to dried parts of the plants, I would use 1 part for each. So for example, there's a nice handful of monkshood. So let's go mad and have 2 nice handfuls of monkshood. So if you're doing it like that, you need 2 handfuls of everything else so that you have equal quantities. The only thing you don't need equal quantities of is the mandrake root, because mandrake roots are very powerful, very strong, and they're really complex because the chemical compound of all these plants is very similar. They're either atropine or scopolamine basically. So adding more mandrake root is more magical than powerful because it contains the same amount of chemicals. So I would never use more than 1 inch. 2 inches if it's a thin leg. Chop all that lot up and you'd be surprised at the bulk you've got. I mean, it does really bulk up. So, but when you chop it right down and grind it as fine as you can, that's how you release all the chemicals. As it is, these chemicals are inert. The oil in there allows them to break down, and that takes 2 or 3 days, which is why you have to steep them. Having done that, what are we going to do with it? You've got your now very precious and very hard worked over bottle of ointments. What you have to bear in mind is every plant you've put in here is poisonous and will kill you if you were to drink that or take it into your mouth. It would kill you because there's some very powerful chemicals in there. So what we do is you rub it in. Now you saw on the video at the beginning, the 20s video, they were rubbing it in their skin, and you can do that. That is absolutely fine. But for the best results, you need to rub it into mucous membranes. Never around the mouth, which is a mucous membrane, but never around your mouth, which basically means, there's no prim way of saying it, it means your privates. You need to rub this around on your privates, preferably get somebody else to do it, and it takes, having done that, perhaps 15 or 20 minutes for it to be, if you get in the right sort of dream state to do journeying. If it doesn't work within 20 minutes or so, try again, a little bit more, but always err on the side of caution, because this is powerful stuff. You don't want to go too far, and always have somebody with you. Never do it on your own. Have somebody with you who can safeguard you. If you're doing journeying of any sort, you should always have somebody with you anyway. So having somebody with you now to keep you safe and bring you back should you need it. This probably will last, if you were to use normal amount and journey, it will probably give you an effect for half an hour or so, which is usually ample enough time for people to journey. But I would suggest you always use this in ritual. It is a chemical effect, it's a hallucinogen. So yes, there are chemicals and it's a bit of a high, but it's not the sort of, if you want to go and get high, fine, go and do so. But it's not what this is all about. What this is about is ritual. It's about magic. It's about journeying. What you will gain from using this in a journey is spectacular. You have to try it. Give it a go. If you've got any questions, if I haven't explained anything very well, or you don't know where you can get all the herbs, let us know via this website, and you can do it through our Coven website, or you can do it through this YouTube channel, and we'll try and answer the questions as best we can. We grow all our own herbs. You can buy most of these on the internet. The only drawback with it is, for instance, the mandrake. We know that's a mandrake because we grew it. If you were to, especially in England, it's probably not quite the same in America, but in England, if you were to ask for mandrake from most herb suppliers, what you get is ground up white bryony, which is they call English mandrake, which is not mandrake at all and doesn't contain scopolamine, so it's pointless. And when it comes to plants like this, these monkshood plant, a friend of ours grows these in the circle in Avebury. She lives in the stone circle in Avebury, and these grow right in the centre. They are spectacularly powerful. You can get them from most garden centres, Monkshood, grow them. They're special plants. But these are plants, all of these plants in fact, don't mix with children. If this plant particularly, the monkshood, when it's in flower especially, the pollen from the flowers contains atropine, and it's not something you want your kids breathing in. If they run, they only have to run through them and they will have some effect. So these plants are great to grow. They are very beautiful, but they perhaps don't mix with small children. But all of them, with the exception of belladonna, you should be able to grow quite comfortably for yourself. And belladonna you can find growing in England all over the place. So have a go. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it answered some questions, and thanks very much for watching. Bye.